welcome to my channel. Today I have another Halloween video for you. This isn't really Halloween attire, I know, but I'm on vacation. So I'm also filming with natural light today, which is a rare thing for me. I barely ever still do that. But I wasn't going to bring my huge filming lamps on vacation. But anyway, I really wanted to film a video today, this time about my favorite horror books. When you see this 2 weeks ago, I did a video on my favorites silent movies, horror silent movies, and just generally very old movies. Yep, because it's Halloween season after all. By the way, for those who've seen that video, I actually got the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari on DVD now. I bought it in Berlin at a film museum, so yeah, that's a really cool thing. But anyway, this week I wanted to tell you about some of my favorite horror books, because I also really love books. And in a way, I usually find horror stories in books creepier than ones in horror movies, simply because, you know, with a movie you see what's happening. One thing, by the way, that always bugged me about that fact is, well, for example, this really is just the whole point I'm trying to make here with books versus movies. In The Ring, for example, they said that the girl was so creepy, her face was so hideously terrifying that you would die if you'd see her. And then they showed her on camera, and as far as I know, no one died in real life. That sort of just, yeah, doesn't prove their point at all. So yeah, that's really the point I'm trying to make here. With a movie you see the horrors, and in a book you read about it and your own mind can make up the images, which in my experience is a lot more terrifying, because only your own mind knows exactly what you're scared of, and so it just gets catered to your own fears, really. So yeah, I think that's a good thing of horror books versus movies. So I made a little list of 3 of my favorite horror books, which I really love. 2 of them are adult horror stories, one of them is a children's book. I already read that as a child, quite frankly, because even as a child I've always loved horror stories. Like when I was like 6 or 7 years old I started reading horror stories, age appropriate ones of course. And it never really ended, like I still adore horror stories. So yeah, the first one, this is by the way in random order, not like the first one is better than the last one or anything. But the first one is What the Night Knows by Dean Koontz. For those of you who've never read any of Dean Koontz's books, well, you really should. If you love creepy stories with a lot of like plots in it, like a lot of actual story in it, you really should read his books. They're really awesome. He's my favorite writer. And yeah, most of his books are like what he calls suspense instead of actual horror. And What the Night Knows was actually the first book of his that I was actually scared by. Like, genuinely not just sort of scared, but actually really like, okay, I'm not going to switch off the lights. Scared. It's a really good book. I'm going to try to tell what the story is about without spoiling it. I'm really awful at it. But yeah, I'm going to try my best. Yeah, it's about a detective who gets put on a homicide case. And he has a family, but his own, like the family where he grew up in, something horrible happened to them. There was a serial killer, the serial killer got killed, and now he's back, sort of, despite being dead. That's really what the entire story is built upon. But what I really love about this particular book, about all of Dean Koontz's books really, is that he really delves into the minds of the people in the books. It's not just a plain story, okay, and then he did this and he did that. No, he really goes into how their mind works and why they do certain things, how they act, why they act a certain way, what made them this way, stuff like that. Like anything really, like he really delves deeply into their minds. So you really get to understand all characters and sort of like get empathy even for the bad characters. Which really only makes the story even more terrifying. So yeah, that's a book I really adore. The second one is Duma by Stephen King. I actually think in the Netherlands in the Netherlands it's called Duma. I think in English it's actually called Duma Key. But anyway, it's a horror book, obviously, because it's by Stephen King. All his books are quite scary. Of course, them being horror stories. But this one in particular I really thought was the scariest so far. It's really terrifying. It's about a guy who has a construction company, I think, and he gets into an accident, loses an arm, moves to Florida, I think. I'm not completely sure. Either way, there's a beach, it's sunny, he has a beach house, and yeah, that's just really where we all start off with the story. And then he suddenly discovered that he can suddenly paint, which he thought was sort of weird, but he went along with it anyway, because, you know, he needed a hobby at that point. But of course there's a horrific reason for him being suddenly able to paint. So yeah, then what I really love about the story is that it starts off as something mildly creepy. And then the story develops and like a whole lot of things from the past get discovered. Like a whole mystery is solved. And really the horror only gets more horrific with the explanations instead of less. Which I think is pretty cool. Because usually it's the other way around. You know, the more is explained, the less scary it is. And here it's like, with every explanation the entire thing becomes more terrifying. So yeah, that's definitely one I recommend. Unless you're like currently on vacation at the beach or really love drawing, then I would recommend waiting for a little bit to read it. It's a really good story though. And then the final one is Horowitz Horror, actually specifically the complete Horowitz Horror. It's actually 2 books, Horowitz Horror and more Horowitz Horror if I'm right. But yeah, the complete one is just easier because then you don't need 2 books but only 1. It's actually a horror book made for children and it's like all these short-ish stories about really mundane objects like a camera or a, I don't know, computer. There's one about one of those picture booths at a train station. I don't know how this is supposed to convey a picture booth. But anyway, yeah, there's all this normal, mundane, everyday objects that every one of us encounters. And they get made terrifying. I read the book for the first time as a child and it resulted in me being sort of scared of the bathroom for like 3 months. I still don't like looking at a bathtub through a mirror. Even though I'm pretty sure that the bathtub at home is not haunted by a Victorian ex-killer. For a start, the bathtub isn't Victorian and the person who lived in the house before us and placed the bath there was, as far as I know, not a serial killer. But yeah, anyway, it was a really terrifying story and all those stories are terrifying. Less so as an adult, they're more funny now, but they're still really, really interesting and fun to read. Like, they're just, I don't know, like they're funny, really. Yeah, so this is a really fun book, and also one plus about that book is because they're short stories you can just read and then put the book down and go do something else, whereas with the other 2 stories I mentioned, they're really thick books, and I'm the sort of person, when I start reading a book, I want to know how it ends, I want to keep reading, and that will take hours, so yeah. So yeah, that was my final recommendation. I'll just put a list of the books I mentioned below this video, just in case you want to look them up as well. And yeah, also by the way, you can always find a full list of all my social media accounts and names there. Mostly active on Instagram, and I always share it there as well whenever I upload a new video onto my YouTube channel. So I'd really love it if you want to follow me there. Other than that, thank you very much for watching this video. I really hope it was fun to watch, and that's if you get bored. I don't know, you can read some fun books now, and yeah. So, thank you very much for watching. I hope to see you next time, and I hope you have a wonderful day, of course. Yeah, bye!